Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for joining my session. I am Manisha Loraia, joining this VOICE22 summit from Toronto. My talk is titled Sketches in Voice User Interface. This research was done as part of my master's thesis in the Digital Futures program at OCAD University. In the current global context, Voice UI is used in personal assistants like Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, to name a few, where you can talk to them to get tasks done or simply to have a relational conversation with them. With 320 plus million such devices, these personal assistants in smart speaker modalities are part of a large move of artificial intelligence or AI into our homes and many people's first exposure to a voice-based conversational agent in their personal space, that is their homes. It is in this context, through my research, I was exploring relational conversations with personal assistants in our domestic spaces. What makes these bots sociable? What makes us build a relationship with them? The big question I was asking was, what are the ways in which voice user interfaces can be designed to go beyond the personal assistant and become sociable conversational agents in our everyday life? The outcome of the research are a collection of bots, collectively called the sketches in voice user interface. Let me break down this terminology for you, that is sketches in voice UI. When I say voice user interface, I refer to artificial intelligence or AI-enabled voice-first conversational agents. The word sketches is borrowed from two use cases. One being sketching as a prototyping method, where we make evocative, rough explorations not limited to paper, so more like software sketches. And the second reference of the word sketch is borrowed from theater, where a sketch is a small conversational scene. And so sketches in voice user interface are software explorations where a user interacts with the voice interface for a short conversation or a scene, which is observed by the researcher to draw out knowledge. As I was working with an intangible interface, I have used geometric shapes to visually represent each sketch. These four are the sketches in voice user interfaces, starting from the top left, the thinker. The thinker asks questions to build on people's ideas. The listener wants to know what the user is thinking about and is there to hear them out. The learner attempts to engage people around in a conversation, and the chatterer only wants to talk about itself, as the name suggests, is very talkative. I'm going to show you a short clip to introduce you to these sketches.
What is another way you could go about the idea?
I haven't thought about that. I should give it a thought.
Never lose hope. There are always option B's and C's.
Are you there? Oh no, did I lose you?
I'm here.
Do not cancel on me. Not yet. This is going good, I believe. Oh, I had to ask you.
If you write a book, what would it be about? Manisha, anything top of your head?
Maybe about design?
Wow. Lee, what do you think?
I don't think so. I will write a book in my life.
Does this work well for you?
Yup, I'm very tired to do anything else.
I hear you. You could let this thought rest with me and visit it another time.
What is another way you could go?
To build these sketches, I started with an autoethnography. The constraints due to the COVID-19 pandemic forced me to be creative and move away from in-person ethnography. I instead installed several of these smart speakers in my home, interacted with them through the day, recording myself on video, on audio, and sometimes through notes and sketches to capture insights and inspire the ideas behind the sketches. And what you see are my reflections and observations of the conversations, as well as what it inspired, what each conversation inspired. And it also provoked these what if ideas that were then used to derive the sketches. I used an iterative design process where I prototyped each sketch, learning from it and then building the next. So say once I worked on the thinker, the methods and the design elements that I used in it was then used to iteratively build the listener and then the learner. And so the complexity in the shape, which is used in the visual representation, also shows that iterative process. Each sketch explores one module of conversation, like thinking, listening, learning, and talking. And collectively, they explore the complex conversation machinery. They are evocative and are designed to create two-way conversation with multiple turn-taking sequences so as to not let the ball drop when there is a human-machine conversation going on. From the video, you would have noticed I played with different content writing styles, different voices, different dialogue structures, and conversational tools, like using the 6 thinking hats method to write the questions that I had the thinker say or had the thinker ask the user. I used the GPT-3, which is a language generative model, to get the content for the chatterer. I avoided human-like names to keep the conversation focused on the content and avoid anthropomorphic expectations based on the sketch's names. So when I would give a bot a name, the user automatically assumes that there would be a backstory to this particular personality of the bot, and I wanted to avoid that and keep the focus on the content. Once the sketches were built, it was time to experience test them. I shared the sketches with the study participants so they could access them on their personal smart speakers in their respective homes. I gathered qualitative feedback from interviews and observations, asking participants questions like, what did the conversation make them feel? What did it remind them of? Like a user said that one particular bot reminded them of their aunt, just because of the way it was talking to them. I also asked them questions like, what did they like about each of the bots? What did they not like about each of the bots? And then mapped them on this scale between no evocation, the expected evocation that I wanted from the sketch, and then whether there was a strong evocation of some kind of feeling based on the user's interaction with the sketch. And based on these, there were some key findings. The first one being that the effectiveness of the conversation machinery is really based on verbal and facial cues. And so the illustration on the right, what does a person and a voice UI look like in a conversation, is an adaptation of Dan and Tom's illustration for a computer. It's a comical, suggestive illustration that basically tends to imply the limitations of a human-computer conversational setting. And so the finding was that for the effectiveness of the conversation machinery, the use of verbal cues becomes very important in voice-first interactions. The facial cues of the user are not understood but the user then expects them to be noticed, as that is normal in a social interaction. So when the bot cannot sense the frustration or an emotion that the user is actually showing using their facial cues, the conversation tends to break. Another finding was that as relational conversations are social in nature, the user's response and behavior affects how the interaction flows. The user plays an equal role in the conversation as the sketch does. And so the time and energy that we spend on designing the personality of the sketch, we need to also focus and take into account the persona of the user that personality is going to be interacting with. The third finding was that an estimation of the gap between two utterances by each actor is essential for smooth conversation. The sketch speaking over the user breaks the social rule of conversations and frustrates the user. The fourth key finding was that using conversational tools that help people communicate better in social settings, like the tools that we use for effective communication, can also work for human-machine conversation. The same social rules are expected of a machine that talks as that of a person. A second approach to getting the findings from the experience study was that the participants compared their experience of talking to personal assistants with their experience with the sketches, reporting it using a Likert scale. So the users were asked to map on the spectrum between these different attributes of how they felt before and after interacting with each of the sketches. And the design sketches show a clear shift to the right of the Likert scale, making the sketches be perceived as more emotional, more associate-like, empathetic, and conversational in nature. So a key derivative finding from that particular Likert scale study was that having a conversational goal and writing content for that particular goal can then imbibe a personality into the sketch. We can then use the dialogue structure and the logical flow to modulate the personality of a social bot between different attributes. Like just choosing which of these attributes we want, we can then build a particular personality and give it a particular attribute, which is shown on the right side with the different mapping of the sketches and their individual attributes, and how different conversational tools were used to then build these attributes into the personality of the bot. Before I end, I'm going to play a small clip from the experience testing study.
Why do I feel this way?
Because it's Valentine's Day.
Because it's Valentine's Day, really? I would not be here. I would probably be living the life I used to have back on Earth. Well, I go back.
You talk a lot.
If you say so. Do you want to know about yesterday? Do not say no.
No.
I will tell you about yesterday.
No.
I was a new.
I don't really have a plan to go about it. I just want to know your opinion on my question.
To start everything from scratch.
Never lose hope. There are always option B's and C's. Your favorite dessert?
Cheesecake?
Cheesecake sounds yummy. How did you and meet?
We met in Texas.
Please go on. I would love to hear the whole story.
Okay, we met in Houston.
But I also have like work and responsibilities that I need to do. So I am always a bit like stressed.
My experience.
How does it make you feel?
You can go now.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. You can scan the QR code to access the interactive web page of the project and get a copy of the thesis book. Please feel free to connect with me if you have any questions and feedback. Thank you again.